everyone, it's Jan with What You Make It, and I am here to share how I created this fun vintage Santa Claus card. My idea was to create a tone-on-tone card with just a few pops of color. So I began by using the Santa Claus image out of this Santa stationery set by Papertrey Ink, but you could use any vintage Santa Claus. I really think one that is more line art would probably work better, but really any vintage Santa Claus would work. So to begin with, I'm going to use classic Kraft ink. So it's going to be just a little bit darker than the fine linen cardstock that I'm using. So that's our first layer of tone on tone. And I'm going to stamp the Santa image off to the left just a little bit so that when I go to cut out the focal image, I still have some room over on the right hand side to put my sentiment. You'll see I'm stamping on a mouse pad. I just find that I get better impressions when I do that. So I used a Deckle edge oval Spellbinder die to cut him out, and you see that I put him to the left and I'm saving room over on the right. For our next layer of tone on tone, I'm going to use a Kraft cardstock base, and I'm going to go ahead and do the scoring now, but I'm not actually going to fold it because I'm going to do some stamping, and I find that it's much easier to stamp on the card while it is flat before it is folded. Now the idea was to create a wreath, a stamped wreath behind the focal image, just to kind of add another of those tonal layers into it. And I thought I would use the InkadinkaDo stamping gear, but I'm not really proficient with it yet. And so my first thought was, because my focal image was about the same size as the oval stamping gear, that would be the one that I wanted to use. But you can see as I'm just kind of laying it down on the card, I'm realizing it's going to put that wreath way too far away from my focal image. So then I thought, well, let's try the oval ring. And what I discovered was that you can get an entirely different stamped repeated image by going to the inside of that oval ring. So I just looked at it again, put the pine bough image on the other end of the stamping gear, and now when I try it, I can see that it's actually going to put the pine boughs where I want it. So if you haven't used the stamping gear before, you have the option of skipping notches or going with every one. So the first time around this ring, I actually went to every other notch. And the only thing that I would say that is the least bit difficult with this is that you kind of have to hold the ring in place. You don't want it to shift and move. So the first time around the ring, I used classic Kraft ink, and that it's just a little darker than the cardstock. So again, we're working on that tonal imagery. But then I went back and I used fine linen ink and stamped inside the gears of all the ones that I had not done. So I'm now stamping the every other one. And I really like the impact that it has. You get that kind of twiggy wreath look. And I think it makes the focal image really pop. So now I'm going to do the sentiment, and I'm using a Merry Christmas sentiment from Peaceful Pinecones, but it's a long sentiment, so I'm just going to do some selective inking. And if you're really careful, you can just tap your ink pad and then wipe away any ink that you need. I'm going to stamp Christmas first, and then I'll clean my stamp really well and ink up the Merry part. And I love doing selective stamping with my stamps because I feel like you really get more out of them if you can have the option to do a vertical alignment versus a horizontal alignment. So I want to add some pop of color, and everything up till now has been this tone on tone kind of Kraft brownish kind of focal and design elements, but I did want to put just a few red and green elements in there. So I'm using my Copic marker. This is YG67, and I am not going to do any shading on this coloring. I am just filling it in and going to let that be what I do. I'm going to put some a little bit of sparkle ink on top of it as well. I'm using R46 for the berries, and red has a way of kind of bleeding, so you want to just kind of touch. Now, what you just saw me do is my little trick for making my white gel pens work. If they've been sitting, sometimes they are a little dry, and if you'll rub it on your finger, the warmth of your finger will get the ink going. Now, to add just a little sparkle to the holly, I'm using a Spica. I think that's how you say it. It's kind of a glitter pen that's made by Copic, and it works really well over Copic colors. So I put a little bit of sparkle on the leaves, and now I'm using Garnet, which is another Spica pen. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm using the Sakura glaze pen, and I'm using this opaque white, and it's not showing up really well on video, but I have some pictures at the end that you'll be able to see. But I love working with them. It's almost like painting with a pen. Once you get the flow of ink going, it gives you really nice coverage, and it's very easy to fill in places with a spot of color. And when it dries, it has a real nice shine to it. So now I'm taking my white Adirondack dye ink pad, and I'm just running it around the edges to just kind of give a nice soft edge to both the focal image and to the card. And when I'm done with that, I just need to pop it up on some dimensionals. And I don't know if you know that trick of sticking your thumb down into the paper, but if you crease it, it's a lot easier to get those sticky little backings off of your dimensionals. When I had put the focal image on, I decided that the wreath needed a little color too, so I went back with that Garnet pen, and I just added some dots here and there like I was adding some berries, and I felt like that still wasn't quite enough, so I went back to my white gel pen and did very tiny little dots, and that seemed to bring in the white from his hat and just added a little brightness to the wreath as well. You know, sometimes it's just those little details that will add so much, and they're simple little things. It's not even a huge technique, but I really liked that. Now, I stopped filming before I added the twine and the button, so I'm going to show you this picture here. I just wrapped some twine and tied a button through it. Guys, I hope you're having a great holiday season. I appreciate you spending some time with me. I'll be back with another project soon. God bless and have a Merry Christmas.